This conference will now be recorded.
All right, it is now recording. So we have a couple of slides tonight, as well as a little demonstration of how to navigate our new zoning ordinance. So we ask that you let us get through the slides, and then please feel free to, at the end, we'll have some time for questions and discussion. If you have any questions during the slideshow, please feel free to add them to the comment box. Carmen and I will be taking turns monitoring that comment box. So add anything that you think of in that box, and we will go ahead and get started. All right, so everyone should be able to see my screen now. So like I mentioned, we're going to give a little bit of an overview of the zMOD project. We're going to dive into some of the uses that we think are important to highlight, and then we're going to give a demonstration of our new online ordinance, which is hosted in enCodePlus. So in case you aren't familiar with the Zoning Ordinance Modernization Project, or the zMOD project for short, it is the new zoning ordinance that was adopted by the Board of Supervisors in March of 2021, and it just became effective on July 1st. I, like Carmen earlier, mentioned today that the world hasn't ended yet, and we've made it 14 days into July. So okay, we didn't completely mess this thing up, but we're very excited to have a new ordinance that is in effect. This ordinance was the accumulation of over 3 years of outreach with over 100 public meetings. We have now condensed the previous 1978 ordinance into 9 articles, and we've brought it down from 1,200 pages to just over 600 pages. And really, we did that through use of plain language, the elimination of repetitive language, and the streamlining of our regulations. You'll see some clips here. We have a lot of different graphics, hyperlinks, tables that we'll be highlighting tonight in our new easy-to-use online platform called enCodePlus. So here are those 9 articles that I mentioned, and just to highlight a couple of them, we have Article 2, which includes all the zoning districts. So whether you're residential, commercial, planned districts, that Article 2 is going to have an overview of the district and those dimensional standards like applicable setbacks, maximum building height, that kind of thing. Article 3 includes your overlay districts, so we have no longer relegated them to appendices, which is how the previous ordinance was set out. So we've brought in the historic overlay districts, the commercial revitalization districts. Those are all located in the main meat of the zoning ordinance now. We'll be talking about the use regulations a ton in Article 4. That's where a lot of our substantive work was done, and that includes all the different uses that you'll see throughout Fairfax County. Article 5, we lovingly refer to as our junk drawer. When in doubt, if you can't find something, it's probably in Article 5, but that includes all of our setback regulations. It includes the affordable dwelling unit provisions, lighting, transitional screening and barriers. A lot of that's going to be found in Article 5. Article 6 has your parking and loading. So if you're looking for your parking rates, that's going to be located there. Signs, pretty self-explanatory, need I say more. Article 8 is our administration, procedures, and enforcement. So that's going to have all of those review procedures for your entitlement applications, like your rezonings and your special permits, special exceptions. And also your fees live in Article 8. So that's a good place to be looking as well. And then last but not least, our definitions. We have a very robust article with lots of definitions, including a definition for every one of the uses. Just to have a little asterisk here for Appendix 1, that is going to be helpful when transitioning, as we transition to the new ordinance, and it clarifies what application types and what uses can continue to be reviewed under the previous 1978 zoning ordinance. So in terms of new uses, we do have a lot of them. Fairfax County in 2021 is much different than the Fairfax County of 1978. So as a part of our substantive changes with zMOD, we did include a lot of new uses and new use standards. So just to highlight a couple of them, we do have stacked townhouse as a new use. We have carved that out of multifamily, and essentially we've added a new separate parking rate. It is an interim parking rate because our group in planning and development is kicking off a parking rate zoning ordinance amendment that's going to do a wholesale look at the parking rates and make sure that they are still, or new ones can be assigned based on the current trends. So the stacked townhouse parking rate at this point is in between the single family attached and multifamily rates. Indoor and outdoor commercial recreation, these were really consolidations of a lot of different finely grained uses. And these consolidations did result in some permission changes. But basically we have these two, now just two names for different ways to have fun things inside and fun things outside. So that was a big change from our previous ordinance. Goods distribution hub is a use that is basically it's the last mile delivery type of use. So it's kind of like a smaller fulfillment center that may still have some commercial activation, some pedestrian activity happening, but it's going to be located more in your commercial areas in some of your planned districts. So we are excited about that use, and we've been getting a lot of requests about that use. And then data center is a new use. It was previously interpreted to be telecommunications, and now we have a new carved out use with its own set of standards, such as maximum building sizes and different things for screening to make sure that those impacts are mitigated. So now we're going to dive in a little bit more on some of the specific uses that we had a lot of conversations about during the zMOD project to let you all know what ended up being adopted by the board. Accessory living units is our new name for accessory dwelling units, and we have the definition here on the screen. It is essentially a secondary dwelling unit, and it's going to be established with and clearly subordinate to a single family detached dwelling unit. For an accessory living unit, or ALU is our acronym, we are looking for the components of eating or cooking, sleeping, living, and sanitation for it to be considered a an additional, and it does need to be occupied as such. So someone needs to be living in that space as their principal dwelling. In terms of these standards, we do have a new process for interior accessory living units. The board did adopt an administrative permit process if the ALU is interior and meets a set of standards. The special permit process that we previously had continues to apply for detached accessory living units, and they still would require to have 2 acres in lot size or greater. And there's also some options to modify certain of the interior standards with a special permit approval. So we do have new size limitations for the interior units. It would be limited to 800 square feet of gross floor area or 40% of the gross floor area of the principal dwelling, whichever is less. We also have an option to use the entirety of the basement or cellar as long as that area and the home are existing as of July 1st, 2021, so our effective date. So that gives a little bit of flexibility for the basement or cellar areas. And for detached, we have a 1,200 square foot size limitation for those types of units. In terms of occupancy, we do have standards limiting to the area to 2 bedrooms, 2 people, and the requirement that the owner does live on the property. And there is a little asterisk there just to note that the board did remove the age or disability requirement that was of our previous 1978 zoning ordinance, where previously we did require somebody on the property to be at least 55 years in age or older, or a person with a disability. And just a couple of other standards that we wanted to highlight today and these all apply to the interior accessory living units. In terms of the connection, an interior ALU must be wholly connected within the structure and have direct access through an interior space. That space has to be finished, temperature controlled, and fully enclosed. So we really are looking for it to be a cohesive part of the principal dwelling. In terms of parking, we do have a standard that requires 1 additional off-street parking space to be provided for those interior ALUs. That means that if you are on a public street, you would normally have the parking rate of 2 off-street parking spaces, so you'd need to provide 3 total off-street parking spaces. And the same with the private street, since there are 3 required parking spaces for a single-family detached dwelling, 4 would be required if you do want an ALU administratively. In terms of fire safety, we do have a standard requiring interconnected smoke and carbon monoxide detectors, but we did want to also highlight that at the same time as the new ordinance was going through the process of the board process, the statewide building code was also being amended. So there is a new statewide building code requirement that took effect on July 1st that requires fire rated walls or a fire alarm system if there is a stove or oven present in the ALU. So we've been working with our building code group, and there is a certification form that can be provided during the administrative permit process after the fire alarm system, the interconnected fire alarm system, has been installed.
Excuse me, the home-based business use. This is a replacement for the home occupation permit that we previously had, and it also replaces the special permits for home professional office and the, excuse me, barbershop or beauty parlor in the home. And so this new consolidated use in terms of process, it also can be approved administratively or by special permit. And I'll go into the difference in just a minute, but I want to mention the uses because those have been changed. And unlike the previous approach to the home occupation permit, which was a little open-ended, the list is a finite list, and if the use is not listed in the zoning ordinance, then you would not be able to have a home-based business approved for that. And so those include retail sales, but those can only be no customers at the property, only online or off-site. You can have health and exercise facilities, repairing small household items like sewing machines or musical instruments, office, of course, sewing or tailoring, music, photography, and art studios, what we call small-scale production, but that includes things that we often see like home-based food production. And like the retail sales, those production activities are not allowed to have customers come to the home, not even with a special permit. So those are the types of uses we're talking about. And with the administrative permit, we carried forward the allowance for the teaching activities to have customers come to the home with that administrative permit. So like with the previous ordinance, there can be 4 students at a time or 8 in a day. But again, that's just for teaching activities. Now it can be the exercise related teaching. So if you're teaching a yoga class, you can have your students come to your home, or maybe it's you're a Latin tutor or a music teacher. Any of those teaching activities can have the customers come to the home with an administrative permit. But any of the other uses, except not the retail and not the production uses, any of the others can also have customers come to the home, but that's going to require the special permit approval from the BZA. And I will mention that the fee for that, previously the fee for the barbershop or beauty parlor and the home professional office, that was $16,375. It's been greatly reduced down to $435. So it still requires the public hearing, but that fee is much less of a barrier. For employees, that has changed. So there can be just one non-resident employee in a single-family detached dwelling and no employees in other dwellings with the administrative permit. But then any of these uses that can be a home-based business, they can apply for a special permit to have more employees. And the ordinance also has some hours limited, and they can apply for different hours as well with a special permit. We also have a size limit of 400 square feet, and that's going to include all of the areas of the home that are used for the business, including any storage or just anything that's used, and that would be cumulative. Even if you had more than one business, maybe you're a very enterprising person and you have a number of businesses, but cumulatively, we would be looking for 400 square feet to be devoted to the home-based businesses. And then I'll just note for occupancy, it does need to be that business operator's primary residence. And then also I'd like to mention that there needs to be no exterior evidence that it looks like a business. It needs to look just like any other single family dwelling, no outside storage related to the business. It really needs to all be interior. And then for commercial vehicles, there's no difference. All residences are allowed to have one commercial vehicle, and there are size limits to that. And same thing for the home-based business. On the freestanding accessory structures, this is also something that we made a lot of changes to. This is something we heard a lot from folks from the community, from our code compliance colleagues, and so we consolidated sheds and other freestanding accessory structures in terms of their regulations. They previously had some different height limits and so forth, but now they're all treated the same. And we did also remove that 200 square foot maximum on sheds. That was so easily circumvented by just renaming it. Instead of a shed, maybe now it's a workshop, and it didn't have that limitation. But all of these structures, if they are up to 8.5 feet in height, can be located anywhere in the side or rear yard. And that's the same as with the previous ordinance. And then what's different is we added this intermediate step. So between 8.5 feet and 12 feet, it can be located 5 feet from your side or rear lot line. And then structures over 12 feet, now we're getting back to the previous approach from the ordinance. They need to meet that the distance equal to the side setback, and they would be set back a distance equal to their height from the rear lot line. So if, for instance, your gazebo is 10 feet tall, it would need to, I need to pick something over 12. Let's say your gazebo is super tall. It's a 15-foot tall gazebo. It would need to be 15 feet from your rear lot line, and maybe you have a 12-foot side setback, then you would need to be 12 feet from your side lot line. And then for enclosed structures, we have some new standards. If they are on a lot of 36,000 square feet or less, then, and this is with single family dwellings, of course, then there's a maximum height of 20 feet. And in this graphic, you can see, that'll let you have a typical garage type structure. But sometimes we do see taller structures, and they would need to go for a special permit from the Board of Zoning Appeals if you want to have a taller than 20-foot structure. And then we also added a cumulative size. So all of these enclosed structures can't exceed 50% of the principal structure. And that's just trying to emphasize the accessory nature of these structures. And flagpoles. The board also adopted some new standards relating to flagpoles. They carried forward the limitation of 3 flags per lot. There was some discussion about a size limit for flags, but that was not adopted. Just the height was added. So it's 25 feet for lots developed with single family dwellings or manufactured homes, and 60 feet for other uses. And they also added a special permit from the BZA. If you want to have a taller flagpole, you can request that. And just yesterday, the board adopted a specific fee for this use. So that'll be $435 if you want to get that special permit for a taller flagpole. And of course, your legally existing flagpoles as of July 1st, no problem there. You can keep them, but if you do replace it or add a new flagpole, they would need to comply with the new ordinance.
So we also have a couple of green uses to highlight. We have some solar uses that were added to the ordinance. Solar power facility is that utility scale larger principal use of solar, and that would be permitted in certain industrial districts, the I3 through I6, and then it would require a special exception in all of the conventional districts, or it would need to be shown on an approved development plan or by special exception in most of the plan districts. The solar collection system is your accessory solar. So that's something that's primarily meeting the on-site demands, like a roof-mounted solar project for a home, let's say. We have added a standard that these panels can exceed the maximum building height by up to 5 feet. So that would allow for retrofitting of existing buildings that maybe are already close to that maximum building height. The ground-mounted panels would be subject to the same setback regulations as other freestanding accessory structures. Speaking of green, we also have electric vehicle charging as a new use that was added. When it is accessory and in conjunction with a principal use, we do have some standards that we have laid out, mostly talking about different aesthetic regulations. We have added a new great thing that we think. These spaces are counted towards the minimum required parking requirements. So that way, people can retrofit existing parking lots and add the EV charging without having to worry about, reducing the parking rate. So we do have some standards when accessory to residential. We are limiting to level 1 or level 2 chargers. Those types of chargers don't come with the big bulky substations and larger equipment that the DC fast chargers or level 3 chargers come with. So when on a surface parking lot or the top level of a parking garage that's open to the sky, we do have some additional aesthetic standards, like I mentioned. Maximum height of structures is limited to 9 feet. Canopies are not permitted unless they are providing solar. And then we do have some screening requirements for that big bulky equipment and some limitations on display area, limiting that size to 1 square foot of area per dispenser. Special events is our new name for a very outdated list of what we had. I think it was like turkey shooting and steeple chasing and circuses. So we're just calling these special events now. So we've consolidated this use and we've broadened the definition. The administrative permit that is issued for a special event would now be valid for 21 days. Those days do not need to be consecutive. So an area could have, let's say, like a family Fridays, and they could have a movie screen outside, and maybe they can pick a couple of Fridays in a summer, and they don't have to be all in a row now. We've removed some outdated provisions, like the zoning administrator needs to find the operator in good repute. We don't need to be in the business of doing that and making that determination. And then one of the biggest changes is that most of the uses no longer need to be sponsored by a nonprofit, which does further expand these placemaking opportunities to people that wouldn't qualify under the nonprofit requirements. Food trucks are also a fun thing. We have included some additional flexibility for residential areas. For non-residential uses in residential districts like swimming pools or religious assembly uses, we would allow those, or we do allow those now. I'm talking like it was proposed, but this was adopted. So we allow those as long as they are complying with some of the other food truck limitations, such as a maximum of 3 trucks on a site at a time and 4 hours for the time period. So these food trucks are allowed up to 12 times per year administratively by right. And then additional times per year can be requested with special permit or special exception amendment approval. And then the alternative use of historic buildings is a new special exception use that we added that we're really hoping will incentivize historic preservation through appropriate adaptive reuse. So this allows for a special exception for certain non-residential uses for a property that is on the Fairfax County inventory of historic sites. So we're hoping that this will be some great ways to restore and rejuvenate some of our historic properties throughout the county.
So now taking a look at our online platform for the zoning ordinance, I'll just say you can access it from, you go to fairfaxcounty.gov. In the search box, you could search zoning ordinance, or if you go to the old, URL for the zoning ordinance, then you'll see a big red bar and you'll click on it and it'll take you to this homepage. And this just has our welcome message. And it also tells you when the ordinance has been updated through. So in this case, it is through April 13th, and it does not include the recently adopted agritourism amendment or the just yesterday adopted the amendment that has the special permit fees and some other minor revisions. And then of course our contact information. So what I'm going to highlight for you real quick are the different tabs across the top, because they have some different features that are helpful. So here, of course, you have the view ZO. So this is how you actually get into the zoning ordinance. And now we have what we think is a beautiful cover page. And then you can navigate using the table of contents on the left pane. And those, of course, all expand and collapse as you want. And then there's also a detailed table of contents you'll be able to click on and navigate that way as well. And we'll come back and show you more of the zoning ordinance in just a minute. So for now, the search bar, this is going to be really powerful and it's going to grow over time. So you can search, of course, for terms that are in the zoning ordinance, but we will also be able to build keyword searches. We can see what people are searching by, what terms they're using, and then we can add some of those and tag them to certain provisions. So for instance, people might not realize that we call it a freestanding accessory structure when they want to know where to put their place set. So we have tagged playset to that provision in the ordinance, so it'll help people find it. So this is something that will improve over time, and we're really excited to have that capability. The archives, this is where you'll find all of the previous reprints of the zoning ordinance, going back from 1941 through all the way the bottom on the right. That's everything that was in effect as of June 30th of this year. So we've got a consolidated reprint there. Up on the left where it says current zoning ordinance, this is something that is also going to build over time, because you'll be able to click there and then you can search by date, or by, you can also list it out by ordinance. So that means, for instance, this ordinance that's already up, it includes what was adopted on March 23rd, and then it also includes the amendment from April 13th for the Wellington Historic Overlay District. So maybe I want to see what it said before the Wellington. I could go back and search before the Wellington amendment. So as we add amendments, if you're interested in seeing, how it looked at different times, you'll be able to do that. Then under the maps and the resources, those just have different links to take you to the different GIS functions under maps, and then also these different links that we think are useful, that people would want to have access to without having to go back out to the county website and then maybe back into the zoning ordinance. And these can also, if you think of things that you really want us to add there, let us know and we can do that. And then the tables, these are just, it's a quick link. And again, we can also add some others if we find that people really want to have them handy right there. I do love having the use tables here, because I can go right here. If I want to check a permission, I don't have to go into the ordinance and navigate down to section 4101. I can just go right here and check either the conventional table or the planned district table. And then we also have the like the parking rate table and so forth. So here on this slide, you're seeing a little bit more of a detailed view there of how that table of contents on the left can help you navigate and get around. And a couple features that I want to mention here, you can see a hover box for a definition. So the definitions all have these hover boxes. If you were to click on it, it would open up in a separate window if you wanted to print it out. We also have hyperlinks to other regulations. And then across the top, something that I really like, because some of these subsection references, they do get a little bit long. So the bar at the top is telling you exactly where you are, like what subsection you are in. So that'll help you if you're referencing a provision in the ordinance. And then just one more thing I wanted to point out, the images, they are sized to look good on your screen, and that they'll work whether you're looking at your desktop or your cell phone. But if you want a higher image resolution, all you have to do is click on the image and it'll open up to that higher resolution graphic. And then, if maybe you just want to look really closely at the leaves on that tree, or maybe you want to, copy it or print it out for some reason.
All right, so now we're going to do a live demonstration of ENCODE and navigating through it. We're going to use the pet grooming establishment use as our example and as our scenario. We like to show off our pets whenever we get the opportunity. And as you can see here, Carmen's dog Kona is much more jazzed about this pet grooming use than my cat Walter. But we are going to go ahead and pull up the, I'm navigating from the zoning ordinance website on the county site. There's this big red button here that takes you right to ENCODE. But as Carmen mentioned, you can search from anywhere on the county site by typing in zoning ordinance, or even Google, it'll take you here and you can navigate to the landing page. This page scrolls through different images throughout Fairfax County. And I'm going to then click View Zoning Ordinance if I'm looking for pet grooming establishment. So first, you do want to figure out, all right, what zoning district can pet grooming establishment be located in? So it'll take you to the Fairfax County Zoning Ordinance page. It is loading. It takes a little while, I think, because of our big, beautiful image of the Heritage Building, most likely. But here is just the a very basic cover page with hyperlinks to all of the articles. If you want the more detailed version, you can actually click on this table of contents bar up here. And this shows all of the bookmarks. So if you really want to get finally ingrained in, all right, let's dig into the HOD historic overlay districts, you can go through there. I typically like to navigate using these folders on the left-hand side and by opening, expanding, and collapsing them. So Article 4 has everything use related. So I'm going to start by going to the use table, and let's say I want to know if a pet grooming establishment is permitted in the C6 district. So if you click on over to that table, you'll see the use table. It is ordered by these gold bars. These are overarching use classifications. So we do have 7 use classifications like agricultural, residential, public institutional community, etc. So if you know where your use is, you can navigate down and scroll down to it. You can also use a control F, so a control find, and you can find your use just simply by typing in something like pet grooming, and it's going to take me right to this commercial use classification here. If I hover over it, I do get that definition, so I can read what a pet grooming establishment is. I can click on it and get this nice little pop-up box, so I can copy paste it, I can print it, whatever I'd like to do. And then I want to scroll on over and see that in the C6 district, it is P for permitted, but there are use specific standards that are going to be associated with that use. So I do want to go ahead and click on those and see what the regulations are. So let's see, it's telling me that all animals have to be kept inside, enclosed building, and they can't be boarded overnight. So what if I come here, I'm like, well, I actually do want to board some animals. So maybe I am not pet grooming establishment, but I want to check out kennel. Let's see about that. So I can just press the back button and it's going to take me exactly to where I was in the use table. So I'm still in the animal related services category. And now I can check out kennel and I can see the definition there and do a similar approach and find out what the use specific standards are for a animal shelter or kennel. If I want to scroll throughout all of the different classifications, I can click on this parent folder for commercial uses. And I can just scroll throughout and it's going to have a rolling list of all of the uses that are delineated within the commercial use classification. All right, so let's say I'm good. I do actually want to do a pet grooming establishment and I want to see what my setbacks are for the C6 district. I can scroll right on up to the top of the table here and click on the C6 district. And it's actually going to take me to Article 2, which has the C6 zoning district regulations. It has some images, it has a lot and building dimensional standards table, and then it's going to tell me what the setbacks are, maximum building height, that kind of information. There's a keyed graphic that also shows you, what we're talking about when we say side setback. And you can click on that, and there's that high resolution image that Carmen was talking about earlier. There's also some references and some cross-linking to other standards throughout the ordinance. So if I want to know what the parking rates are for a pet grooming establishment, I can click over here and it's going to tell me everything about parking and loading. The parking minimum required off-street parking table is laid out very similarly to the use tables. So you'll see the classifications again. And you can scroll on down and find your pet grooming establishment and find your parking rate there. So it's really good to use these back and forward buttons to toggle between the different zoning districts to find the whole picture. Something else I'd like to highlight is that if you're looking for something that's not a use, but it's still some sort of request, like let's say you want an increase in building height special exception or a reduction of setback special permit. In Article 8, under the review procedures, we have tables that list all of the non-use special exceptions and all the non-use special permits. So these are all located in those tables. Let's say, I think I mentioned where it is, the building height, increase in building height. On the right-hand side, you can actually just click on that hyperlink and it's going to take you to the standards that are applicable to that special exception. The same is true for special permits. You'll see all of the different non-use special permits like reduction of setback requirements, and you'll be able to navigate over to those standards as well. I'll also point out in the Article 9 are definitions. We have broken out the definitions by general terms, uses, and floodplain definitions. So if you're looking for pet grooming establishment, say you end up in the general terms, you may want to check out the other section and make sure the use isn't listed there. You can also just click on that parent folder and do the control find again, and it's going to search all of the Article 8 for pet grooming for you. Oops, there we go. So that is ENCODE in a nutshell. We really hope that you dive in, check it out. It's really fun and it becomes very intuitive very quickly as soon as you're moving around and searching for things throughout ENCODE. I will mention that we do have some lunch and learns coming up, and we had our first one today actually. And there will be a little bit of overlap with this presentation tonight, but if you are interested in diving more into some of the specific topics, if I can. My computer is not cooperating. I can show you what they are. But each Wednesday throughout the month of July and then resuming again in September, we have specific topics that we'll be covering in 45-minute lunch and learn sessions. And we'll be posting the videos, the recordings afterwards on our documents and presentations page. So if you are interested, please check out our zMOD outreach page. Here it is. And you'll see the different topics highlighted and then the go-to meeting links for those. So I think with that, I will stop sharing my screen and we can turn it over to any questions. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question or add it into the chat.
Well, maybe I'll ask a question. I'm wondering if any of you, and I know a couple of you have, but if you've had a chance to poke around in the new ordinance, and if you have any, maybe you have a favorite provision you'd like to share.
Okay, I'll go. I actually printed it off. I have a copy at home and I am just finding it very interesting to read through. And then I do like the online version much better. I do find it easier to find regulations now that I'm becoming more acquainted with how it works. So I'm finding the more I use it, the more, or the easier I guess it is to compare to the 78, which, you know, that's kind of ingrained in my brain.
Yes, no, that's a great point. It's one of those things that it's amazing how quickly you start figuring out where you are and remembering where certain sections are. So yeah, the more you use it, the easier it's going to become. And we're picking up a new motto of if you see something, say something. If there's anything you see that's broken, like a hyperlink or if you think of a good search term, please feel free to let Carmen and I know, and we'll be making sure to fix all the hyperlinks, anything that we see along the way.
And I see a question about will we have these slides available? And we will post it on the zMOD documents and presentations page. So we'll get that up shortly. And
Yes.
and the lunch and learns, they'll all be posted as well.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Well, we thank you for tuning in. Oh, wait, there's a question.
Comment. First time using the new format, huge improvement of the old. Thanks for the efforts. Thank you, Matt. We're so glad to hear that. We're really hoping that this is an improvement from the old version. So it's great to hear. But if you do have any questions or anything, please feel free to reach out to me or Carmen Bishop or the planner of the day, whoever you feel like reaching out to, and we'll be happy to help you out. All right. Thank you, everybody. Hope you have a great evening.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.